Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76, where today we're going to craft up some legendary Deathclaw Gauntlets and, as always, talk about what makes them good, bad, or somewhere in between. But before that, we're going to take a quick look at some important things to know about the weapon if you're interested in getting a hold of a good one. First of all, it's not easy to get. You may have the plan for the unstoppable monster from Daily Ops, and honestly, that's one of the better Deathclaw Gauntlets you can get your hands on, but if you want different effects like faster swing speed, you need a generic model. You can't re-roll that unique version of the weapon. Even on my main Xbox character that I've been using since the beta back in 2018, I don't have the plan to craft Deathclaw Gauntlets. It's a random drop that you can get from safes and plan spawns in the ash heap. You can also get it from huge enemies like Scorch Beasts, Grafton Monsters, Sheep Squatches, and the like, but they're pretty hard to come by in that region. You can also get it from ash heap treasure maps, but in my experience, those are some of the tougher ones to find. Long story short, it's really hard to get the plan for this weapon. It's out there, but it's tough to find. If you don't have the plan, you can also check various weapon spawns around the map to try and get a hold of some non-legendary versions to modify. There are lots of places you can check, like these at Appalachian Antiques, Kerwood Mine, and the Sons of Dane compound, but again, it's random, so it can be really time-consuming to try and assemble even a collection of a half a dozen of them this way. Your best bet is to just collect legendary versions that you get from enemies, events, and the like. If you don't have any, I, for example, only had one in my stash to start, you can always do what I ended up doing and go to the Purveyor. I burned up roughly 2,500 scrip on a few characters on 1-star melee weapons trying to get some to modify, but with that 2,500 scrip, I picked up a total of 5 Deathclaw Gauntlets. Not a great return on that investment, so my advice is to just hold on to any of the crappy ones that drop for you and modify them using legendary cores and modules once you have a handful stockpiled. Again, it's a surprisingly tough weapon to get a hold of, but it's worth it. It's one of the best melee or unarmed weapons you can get in the game. Forgive me, I just have an issue saying unarmed weapon. That kind of oxymoron just plays hell with my brain. What can I say? But despite that, it is still one of the best weapons you can get in the game. So even if you have one without any amazing legendary effects, if you've got a solid build, and especially if you take advantage of stealth, it's quite effective on most enemies around the map. I also strongly recommend adding the extra claw mod to it, which is much easier to get a hold of. You can often buy the standalone mod from train stations and may have received it as a plan as a reward from holiday gifts, or even the Atlas donor provisions when that was going on. So as of now, that's not an easy plan to get a hold of, but the mod itself is still pretty easy to find. You can get it for a handful of caps at most train stations. If you hop around to a couple of them, you'll most certainly find some. That's going to increase the base damage of the weapon and add an extra claw to it, which makes it, and by extension you, look cooler. With strong effects and builds to suit them, like bloodied, junkies, or anti-armor, you can do some pretty impressive damage with this. Like most melee weapons, it probably doesn't have the DPS to take on major bosses without stacking up chem and food buffs, so be ready for that if that's your intention with the weapon, but for general farming, you won't need to do anything crazy to make it effective. For me, the most important effect on this weapon is faster swing speed, which is true of really all melee and unarmed weapons. This one, though, it's really important because not only does it improve your DPS, but it also just makes the weapon feel better to use. It looks great, has great audio effects, it feels powerful to kill your enemies with it. Long story short, if you want to run around feeling like a true wasteland badass, I can't imagine many weapons that will accomplish that better than this one. So that pretty much sums up what you need to know about the Deathclaw Gauntlet. Now, let's go craft some up and see if we can get a good one. All right, so I was able to amass a total of 6 Deathclaw Gauntlets to craft. So we'll roll all of those, and then we'll re-roll if we get some bad ones, which I'm sure we will. We'll start with 3 stars. Let's see what we can get. And the first one is Zealots, which reflects 50% of melee damage back while blocking and extra agility. So yeah, not a big fan of this one. Zealots, I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's a situational effect if you're going for an unarmed build and you're a mid-level character, then sure, why not? It's a Deathclaw Gauntlet. It's still going to be pretty good, but it's certainly not what I'm hoping for today. Reflecting damage back while blocking, I just don't care about that. Even as much as I've been running around with unarmed and melee weapons, I don't see any utility in blocking in Fallout 76, so that's a fairly useless effect. Extra agility will give us a little more AP, but we're already running... If you're already running low health and unyielding, a tiny little bit more AP isn't really going to be noticeable. So this one, sadly, is a dud. Let's move along. And our next roll... Ooh, this one's pretty good. Okay. So now we've got anti-armor with faster swing speed, and VATS critical meter fills 15% faster. So anti-armor is going to probably have a better return on your investment on bigger, tankier enemies than, say, ghouls, for example, that don't have a lot of armor. But if you're combining this with a low health build with unyielding armor for extra strength and all the things that come along with that, then you're going to do pretty good, especially if you've got adrenal reaction going. You're already going to have a damage buff at low health, so you can get that, and you can take advantage of the anti-armor effect. Faster swing speed is absolutely the most important effect on any melee or unarmed weapon. That's going to increase your DPS more than anything else. VATS critical meter filling 15% faster. I don't have my character built for VATS in melee, but I've had enough people tell me that that can be really useful, that that's something I'm going to explore in the future. So faster swing speed and a faster VATS critical meter, that seems like a pretty good combo to me. So this one is definitely not bad, and I'm just checking here. I do in fact have the plan for the extra claw mod. I just have to put on makeshift warrior when the time comes. Let's re-roll this one, and now we've got suppressors with swing speed, and it breaks 50% slower. So the suppressors effect I really don't care for here. You might, if you're going against bosses with a team, then maybe suppressing their damage output can be useful, but for general farming, suppressors is going to be fairly useless. If you're not killing things in 1 or 2 hits, if you're not killing 9 out of 10 enemies in 1 or 2 hits with a Deathclaw Gauntlet, you're doing something wrong with your build. They're not going to live long enough to hit you, so suppressing their damage is fairly pointless. Faster swing speed, of course, is going to give you better DPS, which is good. Breaking 50% slower, I always like, because I don't like fixing things, but the suppressors effect kind of makes this a dud. We'll hold on to it for now because it's got faster swing speed and see what else we can get, but overall, not super impressed with this one. The anti-armor swing speed is definitely better. Let's try again. And roll number 3. Is this number 3? No, this is number 4. We've got mutants with VATS critical hits doing more damage and less VATS AP cost. So the mutants effect is going to give you extra 5% damage for each mutation, up to a total of 25%. So it's not nothing, but it's not amazing either. But the combo of VATS critical hits doing more damage and less VATS AP cost makes this one a pretty suitable version to test out with a VATS critical melee build. Those are definitely 2 effects that you want for that. You'd certainly like something a little better than mutants, but overall not bad. The feedback I've gotten from people again is VATS critical hits. If you do that in your build for melee, you really do max out your damage and your DPS, so definitely something worth exploring. Not enamored with this one with mutants, but overall, decent combo. Let's keep rolling along. And now we've got Ghoul Slayers with faster swing speed and less VATS AP cost. So this one's not bad. Ghoul Slayers is probably not an effect you really need with a Deathclaw Gauntlet, but again, looking at this from the perspective of a varied player base, if you are in your mid-levels and you're trying to do an unarmed build, grinding places like White Spring or Radiation Rumble with ghouls where maybe you're not quite built up enough to do one-shot kills on these things yet, maybe this helps you do that. You combine that with faster swing speed, that helps you get out of a jam if you get swarmed, and if you're using VATS with it, less VATS AP cost is definitely a big help. So not bad. It's got swing speed, so at the end of the day, any melee weapon with swing speed is going to be pretty good at the very worst. So yeah, not a bad one. Let's keep going and see if we can improve on that anti-armor swing speed. I have my doubts, but we'll see. And our next one is Troubleshooters with damage back while blocking and a VATS critical meter that fills 15% faster. So Troubleshooters, it's another situational effect. If you clear a lot of silos, if you do a lot of encrypted, then maybe you get some mileage out of this. Depending on what perks you're running, your weapon weights may be reduced significantly, so it doesn't really hurt you to carry around a handful of extra ones, in which case this could be useful. Reflecting damage back while blocking, though, again, to me, totally useless perk. VATS critical meter filling faster is fine if you're using that in your melee build, but to me, this one's kind of a dud because it doesn't have swing speed. I'm looking at this from the perspective of I already have an unstoppable monster, which is bloodied with power attack damage and, if I remember correctly, extra strength. So that's already a really good one. It just doesn't have swing speed, which I desperately crave on a weapon like this. So you're going to have a pretty good one if you want to beat the unstoppable monster, which is accessible to pretty much everybody. Let's re-roll these zealots and see what we get. Now we've got gourmands with power attack damage and 90% reduced weight. So the gourmands effect, if you have your hunger and thirst meters maxed out, it is effectively a 24% damage buff. So similar to mutants or juggernauts, it's not really an amazing effect, but it's one where, again, for that mid-level player, maybe that's useful. You don't have there's no negatives to it. You're going to be doing those things anyway, so you get a little bit of a damage buff. You get the AP buffs that come from being well-fed and well-hydrated, so that's good, but not probably an endgame effect you're going to stick with. More power attack damage, that can be helpful, again, in those mid-level circumstances where you don't have all your damage maxed out yet, you don't have everything perfected. Power attack damage could be the difference between a one-shot kill and not. And I noticed that it looked like that was 10 pounds, even though it said 90% reduced weight, but now it says 1. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that's working because 90% reduced weight is one of the handful of third star effects that is potentially useful. All right, what else can we re-roll here? Let's see. We've got the mutants, we've got the suppressors, troubleshooters. I think we can re-roll that one. And I've got 15 left. Let's go ahead and do a 3-star, and it's hunters. Ouch. So hunters is probably the most useless out of all of the situational effects. In theory, you can use it against the Scorch Beast Queen, but there's far better choices for that if that's what you're going to be doing. Reflecting damage back while blocking, again, is a waste of an effect. Extra strength is going to give you a little bit of extra damage. It's going to give you more carry weight. So if you're that mid-level or low-level player, maybe this is useful for you, where it's not going to be as useful for an endgame player. But overall, I have to say this one is a dud, and I think we're going to just re-roll this. So I've got 11 modules left. Let's do a 2-star, and then we'll be able to do 2 more 3-stars. So now we've got troubleshooters again with 25% damage while standing still. So essentially the Sentinels effect. That I can imagine being useful on something like a heavy gun, but on anything else, I don't really see it. With melee, you tend to be moving around a lot, so I don't see you doing a whole lot of standing still with this weapon. Therefore, that seems like a pretty stupid effect. The troubleshooters effect, we talked about at length already, so I think we get the point there. This, to me, is essentially a 1-star troubleshooters Deathclaw Gauntlet, and yeah, we're definitely going to just re-roll these effects right now. So we're going to do 2 more 3-star rolls. Here we've got Nocturnal with damage back while blocking and VATS critical meter again. The Nocturnal effect, it's much improved over what it used to be. There's no longer a negative to using it during the day, and it does give you a pretty significant damage buff at night. So if you don't have anything better, this isn't a bad one to use. Unfortunately, no swing speed, no power attack damage, which would be, to me, a distant second. Melee damage back while blocking is pointless. Critical meter, again, we've addressed these before. I think we get the point here. We've got one more shot here to try and do something a little better than that anti-armor. My expectations are low, but let's see what we can do. Come on, RNG, what do you got for me now? Ooh, that's an interesting one. So here we have a Junkie's Deathclaw Gauntlet with faster swing speed, and we take 40% less damage while power attacking. So the Junkie's effect is a 50% damage buff if you have 5 addictions. If you're pairing that with, say, low health, you're not far off from where you'd be with Bloodied with the way the additive damage stacks now. It's not quite as good, but it's still pretty damn good. And then the interesting thing, though, with Junkies when it comes to melee weapons is there are a lot of food and chem buffs that you can take advantage of to increase your damage and your just overall competency with the weapon. So if you factor in some perk cards to make those chems last longer, there's a lot of things you can do here to make this a really effective weapon, especially in light of the fact that it has swing speed. Less damage while power attacking, meh. I don't really care about that here because I have swing speed, so I'm not going to be doing a ton of power attacking. But overall, this is a really good roll. I don't know how much I personally will use it, but it's a really good roll. So we definitely came out of today with 2 really solid Deathclaw Gauntlets. And that, my friends, is going to bring this one to a close. So we got a couple of good ones. We got a whole lot of trash in there. And as you saw earlier in the video, I wasted a ton of script just trying to get a hold of some Deathclaw Gauntlets to craft for this video. And, you know, hey, better me than you. I've got the script to burn on all these characters, so learn from my mistakes. If you want a good Deathclaw Gauntlet, just hold on to the terrible ones that get dropped for you throughout your gameplay. And one day you'll have a half a dozen of them or so that you can run your own little crafting session with and see if you get anything good. I do hope you enjoyed our time together today. If you did, be sure to go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter. There's always more to come on the channel, and I do hope that I see all of you next time.